Okay, Natalia, I'm taking a look at your assignment from week 5. This is your first draft of your part 1 of your project. So, first thing I notice here is that you're using APA, which looks good, except well, not accept, but for the final project in week 7, I'm asking everybody to try to change up your title a little bit to make it more creative, to make it more related to your topic and be more creative. So if you could do that, that would be great. Um, Also, you're supposed to, I know it doesn't show it on the exemplar, but you're supposed to actually repeat the title down here at the top of page 2 as well. Now, if you notice here, see where this is centered, but this one is tabbed in way too far. This is like twice as far as it should be tabbed in. It should be against the left margin. Okay, so you want to make sure that's lined up with the left margin. All right, let's see what you have here. If given the choice between time and money, which would you choose? Would it be too much to ask to have both? The Beat the Clock by Catherine Tyler discusses the possibility of living with money and time. Throughout the article, Beat the Clock, she discusses the importance of proper time management training. Okay, so you got a little bit of wording issues here. Throughout the article, comma, Beat the Clock by Catherine Tyler, comma, she discusses the importance of proper time management training, and then you have a comma, then you should change this, probably just say something like, without um, without which we are at risk of losing productivity levels and morale. Okay, so that would probably work a little bit better, without which we. Okay, by exploring better time management skills, we can witness a higher productivity rate due to lower stress levels in employees, which in turn increases morale and account. By installing time management training in businesses, productivity and employment. Okay, so your introduction is not bad here, but you want to make sure you're following the exemplar. And I'm not sure if you're really doing that. The exemplars are absolute must. You got to make sure you're following the exemplar, letting us show you how to write you different parts of the paper. As is right here, I feel like you're kind of, um, uh, I mean, it looks like it might be about the same as the introduction that you wrote back in week 4, but the thesis statement, of course, you may not have seen my feedback on that week 4 materials until after you'd already written this. I don't know, but you may want to go back and look at what I said about your introduction in the week 4. That was assignment 4.2, and kind of look at that and see how you could fix the introduction. But what you want to make sure you're covering these things, but you don't want to write to the rubric. And as I was looking at through, I looked it through a little bit here, and I think in some ways, you were sort of doing that. Uh, so what you should be doing is writing to the exemplar, and then using the rubric to double check it after you've done and after you've finished, and make sure all these things are covered in there. So, um, your topic, of course, is time management, so that's pretty clear. Your genre, you talk about how she discusses this and she discusses that. So that tells me you believe she's probably providing an informational paper, so that I can give you that for the genre. Purpose would probably be here in the thesis statement. Um, The thesis statement needs to be worded a little bit differently. Again, the exemplar shows you really how you should word the thesis statement, because the thesis statement should make an assertion and then tell the 3 reasons why the assertion is true. And then that way your body paragraphs will line up with the assertions, the 3 different reasons the assertion is true. You would discuss each one of those 3 reasons in the same order throughout the body paragraphs. You don't have a specific audience for for what you're writing here. You talk about who her audience sort of is. Um, but and I'm not sure, I can't recall offhand who the specific audience is for Beat the Clock, but if Beat the Clock's audience, if the audience that Catherine Tyler was addressing is employees, then you have to think of somebody other than employees. Now, if who she was addressing was like management or something, then employees would be okay. So that's something you just have to make sure you clarify there. Okay, so that's a little bit uncertain there because your audience should be more specific instead of just employees, because like almost everybody is an employee if they're not management. Even management, technically speaking, are employees. They're just higher up, right? Um, so that's something you need to clarify. You need to make sure you delineate your specific audience here in the introduction somewhere. Now, historical and cultural context. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything clearly alluding to a time or culture. So that's not quite alluded to there. That's not quite covered well enough. Well, actually, okay, so you do it down here. So this is what I was saying. So here you talk about the topic, so that feels like you're just trying to now cover the different rubric elements, and that's what I was saying that you don't want to do. You don't want to write to the rubric. You want to write to the exemplar. Use the exemplar, and then only use the rubric after you're done with the whole thing to make sure you covered all these things in it somewhere. So preferably all these first things down to and including the core idea, those are all things I should find right there in the introduction. Then the details and feat evidence, that's what I would find in the body paragraphs. But you've got it kind of all the way through the paper here. You just kind of, feels like you're kind of trying to address the core, the rubric elements instead of using the exemplar. So that's the problem that you need to make sure you fix. Okay, because remember, this will be part 1 of your final project in week 7. So you want to make sure that it's all properly done, so that you'll have a good basic paper that you can draw from to rewrite it for your second audience, which will be part 2 of the final project in week 7. All right, so that's kind of where I'm going to leave it, because it's apparent to me that that's kind of what you're doing. Is you're just at this point, from this point on, you're just kind of addressing each one of the rubric items, and what that basically looks to me like is you're just creating a list of answers to the rubric, and then putting those answers in paragraph form, and that's just not the way it should be done. So you really got to use the exemplar. Okay, you don't really have, you have this here, which again is probably trying to answer this question about history and stuff, but it's not really properly integrated. And then you don't really have you have one source citation, which is not enough. You should have sources all through the body paragraphs until you get to the conclusion. And I don't really see a solid conclusion either. At least it's not separate. So lots of issues there. Basically, the whole issue is the fact that you really it does not look like you followed the exemplar. And that's the most important thing to do. Okay. So you don't even have any citations other than this here. You don't have a page or paragraph number, though, at the end of the entry. So it's not really properly, your sources aren't really cited and entered correctly. So those are all things you're going to need to fix. References page should be down on the next page. It should start on its own page, and it needs to be, you don't want this much space here between the parts, and this should be tabbed in. It should be hanging indented. Okay, and then if there's a URL, you want to check and see if there's a URL that you would put here as well. So you're going to want to fix those things, and then make sure you revise and edit everything really well using the exemplar, which I'm going to attach over here. I'm going to attach down somewhere below. It'll be somewhere below your feedback, and you'll want to make sure you use that exemplar to do your revisions and edits. Okay, so that will do it for this video, and if you have questions or need any help, please let me know.